I'm going to go with Steven. Pronouns he, him in Arizona, lives in a very conservative area and wants some advice. Steven, you're on Talk Heathen. How you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm awesome, man. I'm really, really great. So it says here you live in a conservative area and you're looking for advice. What exactly are you looking for?
Well, I live in a pseudo-conservative area. As an atheist, you're always surrounded. And I actually live in a very Mormon neighborhood, and my Mormon neighbors are lovely. But, when I go to work, it's a very ethnically and religiously diverse community, including atheists. I've actually performed atheist weddings. And everywhere that I've ever lived, there's been a lot of diversity. And I'm about to move to a crazy place because that is where my partner wants to live.
Yeah.
I'm moving from Arizona to Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And in advance of going there, I looked up some demographics and some politics, and it's like 98% Republican, 99% white, which means any person of color is probably the only one in town and will know who they are. I am LGBT. My partner is straight and emerging out of the Catholic experience, but we're getting married. So I'm explaining to him that it's going to make him LGBT by association by marrying me.
Right.
So I'm wondering what it's going to be like to go into. Forrest, I know that you're from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Or at least you live there. Sofia, you're lovely. I don't know where you're from.
Aw, thanks.
But it's this. I've never lived somewhere this monolithic, this conservative, this much of a place where I know I'm going to be very alone. And that isn't to say that I won't find other atheists eventually and so forth. I'm sure that's going to happen. But going into it, I feel like I have to be very quiet and somewhat defensive. And I just wondered if you could give me some advice if I'm approaching this the right way, or what I can expect, because this is going to be bananas. I've never lived somewhere this rural. I've never lived somewhere this conservative, or this white for that matter, which is going to be hard to get used to, which may sound strange.
No, it doesn't.
But I'm used to people of color being around me, and there won't be, we're all going to be the same color.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually, in my new property, we're going to have something they call a crick, which I think around what they were actually saying. So, it's that kind of a thing. And it's not that I'm not still excited to go and this new chapter of my life, and it's all going to be wonderful. But there's this other part of it where I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
So I wondered what your thoughts were and if you had any advice for me.
Buy gun.
I mean,
honestly,
all right. Well, we're going to sidestep Forrest.
All jokes aside, now I live in Oklahoma. I live in Tulsa, Oklahoma. There are and always have been double-digit churches within walking distance of my house. We have very tiny racial diversity in our town. I grew up in a town just outside of Tulsa called Broken Arrow. My P.O. box is still out there. That was actually started as a white flight town. And so, I totally get where you're coming from, dude. I understand it, and it does absolutely suck. There's different camps. There's different lines of thinking. My wife is very cautious to make sure we don't have anything in our yard. We don't put bumper stickers in the car or anything like that, because people will follow us home where we're from if they don't like what you have to say. Because they have the majority and they feel comfortable and empowered in doing so. I'm an idiot, and I love to go out in the street corner with signs and scream at people and yell from a megaphone about my ideas. And so, literally. And so, I'm all about getting the death threats. I don't mind one bit. So it really is just how much does the community matter to you? Do you want to fit in? Do you want to have a community experience? Or do you not mind being a homebody by way of ostracization? Because it can happen. In any case, I would always just recommend, if I had my way in the world, and I understand this is difficult and dangerous and scary, and so no shame if you don't do this, I would always say, be aggressively and unapologetically yourself all the time. And if people don't like it, they can fuck right off. And if that will get you in trouble, it absolutely will. But I would rather be that way myself than any way else. And I say that with all the confidence of a cisgendered, mostly heterosexual white man.
I think that, I mean, as a fellow white person, there is some level of like, speaking from that perspective as well, I was way more okay with the idea of death threats until I had a kid. And now I'm like, it's a little more risky. But I think the first thing that I would really want to say is you don't owe anybody anything. You do not owe them being the token like LGBTQ person. You don't owe them listening to a bullshit idea if they're going to be offensive and disgusting. Like, just to reaffirm that, because there's going to be people who try to make you feel like you do. The school of just asking questions or you can't even talk anymore, throw that shit out. You don't know that. You don't need to spend the time on that. And it's totally okay to be like, hey, I'm just not interested in having this conversation with you. It's going to offend people, but just know your boundaries and also know that they can change day to day. That it's okay if you're like, yeah, today we can have this conversation. And then other days just be like, I can't take that load on, you know? And I currently, this is not exactly the same, but I moved from Seattle to Texas and then became an atheist in Texas. So good planning there, right? And I now go to a Christian university. And so I didn't tell people for a while that I was an atheist. I already have enough that sort of makes me stick out a little there until eventually I couched it in the sense that I am nervous about how people will respond to this. There are things that if I have an obligation, I'll say, hey, I have an obligation. I won't tell them it's for the atheist community. But I will say stuff like, you know, here are things I've heard from Christians before. Here are things I've heard said or had said to me or that I find really offensive. I'll open it that way. Instead of just doing, we're going to have a freewheeling conversation, I'll actually be like, yeah, here's my emotional state here. And it's not from nothing. Like, there are reasons that I think it's valid for me to be nervous and for me to feel defensive. I mean, that doesn't really help with a lot of you're going to encounter so many microaggressions. The other thing I think you're probably going to encounter that I just put to you to like maybe think about how you're going to handle this. If you are part of the majority, then there are going to be people who say shit to you that you don't want to co-sign, right? That are going to say racist shit or whatever it might be. And I think just putting some thought into how you're going to, shut that down or move on, or for your safety, I would never say like, do something that would make you feel unsafe. But, I get a lot of mileage about saying, I don't agree with that. And just, it's sort of a moderate tone and you're not making an argument, but you're just like, I'm not going to co-sign that one. Varying levels of intensity for sure. But yeah, I don't think that there's one size fits all advice, but I think protect yourself and know that you deserve that. I think that's where I would start.
Yeah, I would just parrot what Sofia just said, because I am also an antagonistic little shit. And when I am in Oklahoma, lots and lots of people around me like to fly the loser flag, the Confederate flag, and they there's this whole it's heritage, not hate. Heritage of being a fucking loser, right? Cool, whatever. But like this is a very popular symbol, and because they live in this majority, they've rarely, if ever, experienced any pushback on that. And so for you to just kind of be even just a gentle little bit is like, oh, that sucks. Oh, wow. I like the winning side personally. I like the side that didn't want the slaves. You know what I mean? That's just me. I actually like America, so I don't root for the traitors that committed terrorist attacks on American soldiers. I don't like that. I'm kind of patriotic that way. That little bit of pushback, it's often quite jarring for these people because they've never ever had to deal with that before. And so if you are like us and you are instigative and provocative and enjoy causing some trouble, these are great ways to do it with a smile on your face. Might not be for everybody though.
Yeah, I've always been, my partner being Catholic and everything, I've actually been very impressed with because I haven't been pushing him, and he's deconverting, and he's sort of generalized Christian right now after being very devout. But his parents are like Fox News watchers. So we have conversations about what all of this is going to mean. And he did say to me very recently, he's like, it's very white here. I'm like, well, okay, I don't know what that means. And he's like, well, there's like one person of color and they live 3 doors down, and I know they're the only one or the only family. And it's like, holy crap, I've lived in cities and I've lived in other places, but I also console myself because of the region. It's Pennsylvania Dutch country. So there's going to be a lot of handmade furniture and stuff like that.
A lot
that
of scrapple?
And yes, but you can kind of, the easy thing about that, because Pennsylvania Dutch or some of the other, I don't know how to refer to them as a group, but you all know what I mean. They don't know how to dress, and they wear, bland colors, and are very into woodworking and farming. But you can kind of look at them as being other and separate, that it doesn't feel like they're as influential, and they're not. But it's, when you walk away from that and you see people who are dressed more normally, you start to feel a little safer and to realize I'm not necessarily going to be, I think is what I'm wrestling with.
Yeah.
I hear everything you're saying. It is tricky. I will have the more militant, aggressive conversation, and I like to just be myself. So if I'm going to wear something that says, "Hi, I'm celebrating Pride," you can like it or not. And, and I'm old. I don't have to put up with too much at this point in my life, or at least that's how I feel about it. So it's just navigating it. I've just never lived anywhere like this. So I'm just wondering what it will be like. And you guys are from parts of the country that reflect that better. So thank you for your input. I appreciate it.
Hey, no worries. And don't be, I don't think you are, but don't let us make you too cynical either. There's good people everywhere. And I think people will surprise you.
I think the thing I would also point out there. Sorry. I don't want to interrupt anybody.
The Mormons here really surprised me. Yeah, the Mormons here really surprised me. They protect me as an LGBT person. They protect me as a Democrat. They watch my house when I go on vacation. They're really nice, and I'm actually going to miss this sort of 1950s kind of neighborhood that I'm in because of that. So it's, I'm trying to tell myself there'll be people like this there. And I'm sorry, Sofia, please go ahead.
No, absolutely. I think the thing that I would throw out there is that you might end up becoming this guardian angel protector type for folks who live in that community. If you're wearing a Pride shirt, they're always looking. The number of people who will secretly, come up and tell me things at the school that I go to, be like, "Oh, I'm not religious either." They don't want to say it, but they will take the cover that you provide. And that's really amazing too. But remember to take vacations, give yourself a break, because that is insane to stay in that position for too long.
Oh, yeah. We're already planning, Mediterranean cruises and things to get away every so often. So yeah, there's stuff. But well, again, thank you very much. I know we're coming up to the end here. So thank you very much. I appreciate you taking my call and for your advice.
Hey, thank you,
lovely.
Steve. You're awesome. Take care.